Hello everyone, welcome to another Flesh and Blood video. In this video, I decided to go over another Blitz deck that I personally find pretty fun and pretty good, and that deck is going to be Kayo. So let's get started. First, taking a look at Kayo, you can see that he is a 4 intellect, 19 base health hero with the effect whenever you play an attack action card with 6 or more base power, roll a 6-sided die. On a 1 to 4, you have the base attack rounded down, and on a 5 or 6, you double its base attack. This gives KO a lot of potential to straight up one-shot your opponents, even on turn 1, but it does sadly give them the downside of some games you're just going to get super unlucky and you're going to do no damage. But the whole point of this deck is to sort of alleviate that. This doesn't check or double pumps, so if we do play effects that pump up our attacks, those won't be affected. And it also doesn't affect some smaller attacks that we're playing as well as our weapon. And we also have other effects to help us re-roll dice. So all we really need is 1, 5, or 6 to win a game, and the whole point is to try and get those 5 or 6 on at least one attack. The main equipment we're going to be bringing in are going to be Ravenous Meat Axe, which I'll talk about when I talk about our shoes of choice, Hope Merchant's Hood, Vest of the First Fist, Gambler's Gloves, and Beaten Trackers. So before I talk about the weapon and the legs, I'm going to talk about the helmet, chest, and gloves. So Hope Merchant's Hood is really good in a deck like this, since this deck wants to have a certain hand really early. You want to have a big attack, maybe 1 or 2 pumps, and resources to pay for it all. And Hope Merchant's Hood lets you throw away whatever you don't need. Say I have 2 swing bigs in my hand, and like a Rolling Thunder and a Ready to Roll. I might want to throw away the 1 swing big, maybe get another blue so I can play the Ready to Roll to help guarantee my KO effect. Or I can try to find, say I have a hand of 3 reds, 4 reds, I send some of them back, try to get a blue to pay for my turn. That's kind of the idea of Hope Merchant's Hood. You don't really need the block when you're just trying to kill your opponent in one hit. Vest of the First Fist is really good because this deck is going to be taking multiple actions a turn. Sometimes you can't pay for it all. Vest just lets you pay for your whole turn really easily, and you really only need the 1 turn to win the game. And Gambler's Gloves is really good since this is a deck all about rolling dice. This is kind of a must play, and you can't really not play it in most situations. Finally, talking about the legs and the weapon, Beaten Trackers are obviously really good because they give you an extra action point. They're a little more consistent than the other brute leg options, which is why we opt to play these over the Scab Skins, but we're still going to end up playing the Scab Skins for some matchups. Beaten Trackers, however, are just really good with this deck's main weapon of choice, Ravenous Meat Axe. So, Ravenous Meat Axe, if you don't know what this card does, is from Monarch, and no one plays it, so I am going to read it. It's a axe that costs 2 to attack and has 3 base power. When you attack with it, you draw and then discard a random card. If the card you discarded had 6 or more base power, Ravenous Meat Axe gets +2. So, this can be a very easy 5 that can come in that procs your Beaten Trackers, so it can pretty much have go again. Or it can be just a swing at the end of your turn to maybe get in that last hit on your opponent, and it can just be another way to find something. Say, again, you're in a similar situation, you could need a blue, even though it's a little risky, you can swing with the Meat Axe, try to discard something, try to find a card you actually need, and then use the Beaten Trackers just to guarantee that you get your action point back. So Ravenous Meat Axe is a really cool option, and is one of the reasons why I actually wanted to showcase this deck, because I think this deck makes really good use out of the Meat Axe alongside the Beaten Trackers. Before we take a look at the full deck list, let's take a look at the sideboard equipment that we're playing. These equipment are Arcane Lantern, 1 Mandible Claw, Nulrin Boots, Nulrin Robe, Scabskin Leathers, and Skullhorn. The reason for these Arcane Barrier is because we want to keep our gloves while having a really high Arcane Barrier. Skullhorn's very nice with an Arcane Barrier too, and if we need to, we can use it to cycle, just like we can with our Hope Merchant's Hood, even though it's not as strong. We're on the 1 Mandible Claw, so we can play the Arcane Lantern. If you wanted to, you could play 2 Mandible Claws as your weapons. So just swap the Meat Axe for the second claw, which is good. You can do that. Personally, I really like the Meat Axe, but most players are just going to take the Mandible Claw for those even better Blood Rush Billow turns, which is a card in the deck, so I really can't fault you if you wanted to bring a second Mandible Claw as your main weapon. Finally, these Scabskin Leathers are really important because there are some matchups where Beaten Trackers just don't work well enough. In a matchup where you need the extra health, or in a matchup where you need to take multiple actions repeatedly, Scabskin Leathers are a better option. In longer games, it could be very hard to kill your opponent, especially against a deck like Prism. You'll need the Scabskin Leathers instead of the Beaten Trackers to repeatedly and reliably gain action points. And against other similar control decks that are just going to out-tank you and are going to be very hard to kill, it's pretty important to have extra action points more often than a 1 extra action point one time. Now, let's take a look at the deck list. This deck is 2 red Breakneck Battery, 2 red Predatory Assault, 2 red Pulping, 2 Rolling Thunder, 2 red Scar for a Scar, 2 Skullcrack, 2 Swing Big, 2 red Wild Ride, 2 red Zealous Belting, 2 Beast Within, 2 Blood Rush Bellow, 2 Pack Call, 2 yellow Riled Up, 2 yellow Smash Instinct, 2 yellow and 2 blue Wrecker Romp, 2 blue Lead the Charge, 2 Ready to Roll, 2 Reckless Swing, and 2 Tear Limb from Limb. As you can see, this deck has a lot of tools that sort of up the consistency. Scar for a Scar is a really nice card. Since Kayo starts at 19 health, we can play it on turn 1 with Go Again. Zealous Belting is also pretty nice since it will pretty much always have Go Again if we pitch a yellow or our blue Wrecker Romp for it. We also have a pretty nice package of blues. The Reckless Swing is good to end a game if we get our opponent low enough. The Ready to Roll is a Kayo specialization that makes us roll an extra die whenever we would roll a die. And the Lead the Charge is another tool to gain an extra action point that is pretty nice. Obviously, we're playing our 1 blue 6 power being the Wrecker Romp, but a card that not a lot of brutes are playing that I really want to talk about is the Tear Limb from Limb. Tear Limb from Limb is a 2-cost blue brute action with no block, and it says draw a card then discard a random card. If the card discarded had 6 or more base power, your next brute attack action card you play this turn gets plus that much base power, and then it has Go Again. Tear Limb from Limb is really good, especially when you discard something with more than 6 power, like a Swing Big, although normally you will be discarding a 6, which still, a plus 6 is super strong. Even in situations where this card doesn't block, it's okay since you'll have it for a pitch on your turn, and on a situation where it's your only other card with Reckless Swing, that sucks, but there's really nothing you can do about that. This card is just a really good blue, and it was a good choice since this deck needed another blue. Taking a look at our yellow and red attacks, the other Wrecker Romps are here because 7 is pretty nice. The Pack Calls and the Beast Within are here as extra card draw. Pack Call lets us check the top card of our deck, see if it's a 6 for our draw effects like our Tear Limb from Limb and our weapon. And the Beast Within is obviously Beast Within. It lets us draw extra cards, which is usually pretty good when we're trying to win in one turn, no matter how much life we do lose. The Riled Up and Smash Instinct are just good other yellow brute attacks. I like the Riled Up since the +1 sometimes matters. When it gets halved, it goes to a 4, so you can get in some chip damage, and Smash Instinct having Intimidate is a really nice bonus since this deck doesn't really get to do that all too much. The last yellow in the deck, the Blood Rush Bellow, is just a super strong brute card, and I really wouldn't play any brute deck without it. Even though we're not on 2 Mandible Claws, it's still a really good card when we are playing a brute attack and probably swinging with our weapon in the same turn. Looking at the rest of our reds, we already talked about the Scar for Scar and the Zealous Belting, but we do have one red that isn't an attack, being Rolling Thunder. Rolling Thunder is a 1-cost action with 3 block and says you roll a 6-sided die. Your next brute attack this turn gets +X, where X is the number rolled. This card's really strong as a pump, similar to the Tear Limb from Limb. You have some situations where you just get a +6 or even a +5 with the Rolling Thunder, and you just hit your opponent so hard. Even if you don't get the double off the Kayo, it's super strong. This also can pump up your weapon. So on a turn where you only have a blue and the Rolling Thunder, you can play the Rolling Thunder and swing with your weapon. Sure, it's a random discard with your weapon from the top of your deck, but that's okay because if you hit a high number on your Rolling Thunder, your weapon will be coming in for 7 to even 9 damage without discarding a 6. Then we just have some pretty good red attacks. Breakneck Battery, Pulping, and Wild Ride are all attacks that can really easily gain Go again. Skullcrack is here because if we discard it, we gain an extra energy, which is pretty good in a lot of situations. Predatory Assault is here because Dominate can help us finish off our opponent, similar to how the Pulping has Dominate. And Swing Big is here because it's just a really good 8 power brute card that when it's doubled goes to a base of 16, which is absolutely incredible with our hero's ability. This deck does have a lot of RNG in it, but doesn't every card game? Sometimes it's important to have a little fun, and when a deck like this has its fun, it is absolutely incredible. If you want to play Brute but don't really want to play Reiner or Levia, this is a very good choice to go with. I find it extremely fun, and in testing I had a huge blast playing some pretty big attacks, and it does happen pretty consistently with the amount of attacks you're throwing and the helps of the Ready to Roll and the Gambler's Gloves trying to smooth out those dice rolls. Thank you all for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed. I don't know what I'm going to be uploading next week since I want another week to test out the Katsu list that I've been playing. I think it's in a pretty good spot, but I just want that one more week of testing before I show it to you guys. Next week we might do another Blitz deck, or we look at some tournament results. I don't know. I'm sure I'll think of something fun. But with that said, hope you guys had a good day, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.